Hello everyone, it's Jesse from AnalogHype.com, and I'm joined here today by Adam Rippon, the creative director over at Muteki Corporation, to discuss their upcoming game, Dragon Fantasy Book 2, on the PlayStation Network. Hello Adam, and thank you for joining us.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. How are you?
Oh, not too bad, not too bad.
That's good, that's good. So I guess one of the first things I want to discuss with book two is at the end of book one, we were kind of left with a cliffhanger of sorts. I mean, I won't exactly go into details because there are probably some people who might be listening to this that haven't exactly played book one.
hmm
But where are we going to pick up after that? I mean, story wise, what can we expect from book two?
So, book one, I'll just say that it ends with a ship, and there's some people getting on said ship.
Uh huh.
And book two picks up with them on that ship. It's actually not the same voyage. They've been, landed someplace for several, weeks, months. Um, and But it's just a continuation of the story from there.
Okay.
We don't really require you to have played the first game or have really any idea of what's going on because basically it works like any other role-playing game where some things have happened in the past and some stuff's about to happen and things are about to hit the fan. Book one's not required, although it definitely helps. We got a few in jokes and stuff.
Right.
But yeah, it starts off on a pirate island in the I was going to say South Pacific, but I guess it would just be desert ocean area. Um, and and from there, the heroes of the first game will travel to the Southlands, a continent that is supposed to be entirely frozen, but mysteriously is not.
Okay.
Um, and they'll unravel what's going on down there as they search for a void stone that is it's basically a prison for demons, and it's missing. Um, they think they're following Gerald from the first game. In reality, they are not, but as anybody who played the first game will know. But in the interim period, they'll discover there's a few more of those floating around, and there are more problems on the way.
Okay. And then book one was kind of divided into chapters,
hmm
which I mean, when I look back at it, it kind of seemed as if it was done that way just to kind of introduce you to the characters and give you some background information of like their stories in each chapter. Are we
hmm
going to see the same thing in book two, or now that we've been introduced to each of the characters, are we going to just see one huge storyline?
So in book two, it is one huge storyline.
Okay.
It's when I started designing this game when I was a kid. I was 14, and the game was divided into 12 chapters. Uh, so the first three that are in Dragon Fantasy Book One are actually the first three chapters from that game. Uh,
Okay.
Chapter one ended up being way, way longer than the original intention. But so with book two, we're taking chapters four, five, seven, and eight, and a little bit of nine, and that is it's all mashed together into one story. Those are all the southern continent chapters that they did. There was one in the middle where it goes back to Sandheim, the Desert Empire from chapter three,
hmm
but I didn't have the budget to do two major areas in one game, so uh, we'll go back to that in book three. But what we did instead of chapters is there's a part in the middle of the game where there's three stories that you can pick from which one to do next, and it's very similar to that scene in Final Fantasy VI or three US, where is it Sabin and anyway, it splits into three there too. So we just sort of executed it that way in this, and I know where the chapter marks are, but I think to most people it'll be fairly transparent.
Okay. And you mentioned book three in there a little bit. I know
hmm
in our first interview we kind of glossed over book 3 a little bit. You just kind of mentioned it in passing. Now that you've kind of mentioned that the series started out as 12 chapters, what can we expect from book 3?
So book 3 is going to be the rest of it. We're going to tie up the whole thing. The party goes back to Sandheim and Westeria, basically everything north of the equator. And we'll probably have some of the Southlands in there too. I really want to try to basically let you have free reign over the world in book 3, although, who knows what our budget constraints will be. Yeah. The big difference with book 3, book 2 took the game in a much more modern game design direction, but it's still like a Super Nintendo style presentation. With book 3, it's going to be 3D. It's going to be basically, the way I have been looking at it is that it's the N64 RPG that I waited for when I was a kid and never got. I'm going to try to have kind of a simple 3D style, not not terribly basic or anything like that, but just like a really good N64 game, but not blurry, and not with a ton of fog. I like that old style of 3D modeling. Basically, I don't want it to look like Final Fantasy 13. I want it to look more like if Final Fantasy 7 was done really well.
Okay. Okay.
And that's our plan for that. But gameplay wise, it's going to be very similar. The game engine that it runs on, actually book 1 also, they're all a 3D game engine, and we abuse the crap out of it to make it look so shitty. Now we'll be able to use it for its intended purpose, which I'm really excited about.
Okay. And so yeah, book 3 does sound quite exciting, because I was as an N64 owner, I didn't have a PlayStation 1 as a kid.
Yeah, me neither.
I was a huge RPG fan, but I never really got that RPG that I really wanted on the N64.
Yeah. Quest 64 was a giant letdown. I remember some other game that was sort of a sci-fi RPG that I played for a little bit, and it was not my cup of tea. Ogre Battle 64 is basically the closest thing I can think of that scratched that itch for me. And nowadays it just basically sits there in its box on my shelf. But actually, one of these days I need to replay that. But anyway, that's our goal with this one. Finish it up, tidy up the story. I shouldn't say tidy up, because it gets real messy real quick in chapter 3, and I'm really looking forward to doing it, because with book 1, it had to be kind of an introduction. Start with Dragon Quest 1 style gameplay and build up from there. So it was necessarily really simple. With book 2, we were I tried to think of book 2 as sort of reintroducing people to the series, because I think book 2 has a lot more appeal to RPG fans than book 1 did, because not everybody loves Dragon Quest 1 like I do. But with book 3, we're hoping that we'll have had enough people who are familiar with Dragon Fantasy by that point that we can just start right off in the middle of some action with explosions and magic, and your party's not like starting from scratch. They're fairly well decked out already, and go from level 99 to level 999 rather than start at level 10 and go to 99.
Right. Wait, so does that mean that our progress, or our characters at least, will carry over from book 2 to book 1? Or book 3, sorry.
I don't know. I want to say yes. I would love to have carryover, and it's definitely something I've thought about. Even Dragon Fantasy 1 marks the save games as completed, and has since the iOS version that we did a long time ago, basically with the anticipation that we might do that. And I don't think we'll be doing that with book 2, but with book 3, it's possible. It'll basically depend on our budget,
Okay.
which depends on how many people buy book 2.
Right, that's understandable.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you guys recently released a combat trailer for book 2, and it kind of highlighted the how the combat engine has changed from book 1 to book 2. Can you talk about that a little bit more? And actually, one of the things I really want to touch on is in the trailer we see Ogden fighting more than 4 enemies, which was the max in book 1.
Yes. Actually, I think book 1 was 3 enemies was the top, but
Was
yeah, I think so, but I don't remember for sure. Bill just held up 3 fingers, so yeah, I think it is 3. But
Sorry
anyway,
about that. Yeah, 3 enemies.
in book 2, there is no upper limit on the number of enemies in battle.
Okay.
We've got some battles with, a dozen enemies, and we may have some with more even. But yeah, there's a lot of enemy sets that are like swarming enemies. Like I think in the trailer we showed the clams.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So we've got set up so that you can really mow down groups of enemies pretty quickly with area of effect attacks. And it's also set up so that monsters can just join into the battle mid-battle. So if you're fighting somebody and there's other monsters nearby, they may run in and join you, which is kind of a happy side effect of how our multiplayer system works. So what we've done to sort of make sure that it never gets too crazy is if let's say there's one guy in your party, the most number of enemies that'll ever actually attack you in a round is 4. It's basically the rule is the number of people in your party plus 3. So most that would attack would be 7 if you had a fully decked out party of 4.
Okay.
And then we did that to make sure that like even if the enemies pile up like crazy,
They're not going to hammer you.
yeah, you'll never get like completely screwed. It'll look like it, but it's still fair, reasonably fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so you said the party limit's going to be at 4, but are you going to introduce any new party members in book 2? Or is it just going to be the same people from book 1?
There's one new character. Her name is Millie. She's a fighter from the Southlands.
Okay.
And then Serpent Diablo, who was kind of a secret character in book 1. He's a much more prominent part of the story. And then, of course, we have monster recruiting. So, like in the Minecraft chapter that we did in book 1, every enemy in the game can be, well, almost every enemy in the game can be recruited to join your party. So, there's lots and lots of new playable characters, basically.
Okay. And I assume that the monster recruiting is going to be will only be available if you have Woodsy in your party?
So Woodsy has an innate ability to capture monsters, but there's also capturing nets that you can use to just... It's basically the item equivalent of his capture spell.
Right.
So anybody can use those, and right now there's 2 different levels of them. There's the basic capture net that has at best a 50% chance of capturing a monster. So like it starts off at a 0% chance when they're full hit points and goes to 50 when they're at 0. So average maybe 1 in 3 or something.
So it's kind of like Pokemon.
Like Pokemon, yeah. And then the deluxe capture net always works, and there's only a limited number of those in the game. You basically get them as part of quests, like a bounty hunt. It'll say like, oh, there's a monster outside town, and he's been, beating up on my kids. Here's a capture net. Go get him. And then you go get him, and you get to keep him after that.
Okay. And so, say I capture a monster mid-battle, I have a full party of 4. Can I switch him out, or do I have to go to a special station to switch out my party members?
So, right, yeah. When you have a full party, it will send the monster back to the well, it's actually back to the restaurant. We use every town has a restaurant in it, and that's where everybody who's in your party who's not currently fighting with you is staying. So it's kind of cool if you go to a restaurant uh, and you've got, like, let's say you got 12 people who aren't currently in your party. They'll all be sitting in the tables eating food.
Okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and it's really funny because it's like most of the time it's monsters. So there's just a bunch of monsters sitting around, hanging out, chit chatting. Um, and yeah, so if you've got a full party, they'll be added to your inactive crew list, and you can go to the town and find them there. And basically, what it does is I think it's the 12 most recently used but not currently in use guys show up in the restaurants, and then there's somebody who says, hey, you want any of these other guys, and you can pick them too.
Okay. Huh. And then, actually, one of the main crutches to Dragon Fantasy Book 1 was in its humor. That's actually one of the things that I really liked about it, whether it was in combat or just like the banter between Ramona and Woodsy. So, can we expect more comedy in Book 2?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Whether you like it or not, I just I try to take the game seriously, and I just I can't. So I fill it with jokes. The main storyline to the game is pretty serious. There's a lot, just like in the first game. The things going on in the world are not. It's not a parody RPG or anything. It's just that the characters in the game are lighthearted fools, and so you can definitely expect more of that in Book 2. We kept the battle descriptions, even though they're really not necessary anymore because you can see what the monsters are doing. I just liked writing them, so they're still there. And basically all of the NPC banter in the game is just, most of them are pretty silly. But they're there to serve a purpose to guide you towards your goal, your much more serious goal, and especially the villain dialogue, which I have a ton of fun writing. The villain dialogue is very villainous. I mean, I think when you read some of the lines from certain people who have been hinted at in Book 1 but never shown, when you read their dialogue, you'll just be like, oh, what an asshole. Oh, my God, I'm going to kill him. And you will get your chance by the end of, well, the one that I'm thinking of. You won't get your chance in Book 2. That's Book 3. But you'll really want it. So when it finally comes around, you're going to love it.
Okay. Actually, you mentioned, before you mentioned a secret character in Book 1. Was he present in the PlayStation version? Because I don't remember like crossing paths with him or anything.
Yeah, if you go in Anders' chapter, if you go back to Derwent Village and go to the inn, there's a guy hanging out in the inn. His name's Serpent Diablo, and he'll join you. And he's basically a bounty hunter, and his story is relatively unexplained in Chapter 2, except hinting at, there's an even more secret scene, the Man of Shadows achievement. If you get that, you've seen it. And we explain a lot of that in Book 2. And then, of course, in Chapter 3, he's that guy who's sitting in the Thieves Guild and talks to Ramona a lot. Ramona and Gerald. So... yeah, he was basically a secret character in Chapter 2.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I actually do remember him. Actually, so he's gonna be back, and I believe there was a girl in Anders' chapter as well. Will she be returning as well?
A girl in Ogden's chapter?
No, Anders in Chapter 2.
Yeah, there was Casty and Punchy, and they are recruitable characters. And we are planning on having them in Book 2. Um, and we may add one more, or we may cut them. I don't know. I'm hoping to have them in there. They're not done yet, but basically, the way the game is tuned, you know, it's set up so that it always assumes that you have like at least 3 or 4 people in your party, except for a few parts where you can't get anybody. Um, so there are parts in the story where there's only 2 story combatants. Like maybe Anderson Woodsy or just Ogden by himself, and we sort of expect the player to recruit somebody or capture some monsters or something. So Castorella von Magic Pants and Sir Punchibald von Hammerstone. Is that what we named them? Yeah.
Those
They
names.
are. They will be basically hanging out in the restaurants, and you can grab them whenever you want. Um, and one of the things that we're thinking about doing, which will probably not make it for like our 1.0 release, but maybe we'll do it as like a free DLC or something, would be a special tower where only the you can't go in it if you've got your main party members. It's like the tower of B team people, and that's something we've been thinking about for a while and want to do because I love exploring the stories of people who don't really matter to the story. Conceptually, it's not like Dragon Fantasy is a bunch of navel gazing. It's just I want to do that at some point, so I'm hoping to get that in there.
Right, it's more it's like more background information on the background cast.
Right? Yeah.
And wait, what
Go
was
ahead. No, I
what?
was just yep. I was not going to say anything. Go ahead.
Okay. And you mentioned DLC.
Hmm.
Is there anything else you guys have in mind for DLC?
Nothing we're ready to really talk about. We really have a lot of fun building this game, and with Book 3 being a 3D game and our tool set being very robust for 2D game creation at this point, we kind of felt like it would be a shame to not do some more with it. So there's a pretty decent chance that we'll do some DLC. Maybe like a Dragon Fantasy 2.5 or something at some point. I don't know for certain. I know we definitely really want to do this tower of B team people at some point. And maybe we'll do more in the future. I don't know. It all depends on whether or not we make any money.
Yeah.
It's been we've been working on the game since last January, and so if it's well received, we will definitely do more. If not, we will line up in the bread lines, and you'll see me on the street corner with a sign that says, "We'll make you a video game for a sandwich."
Oh, oh, that's funny.
Funny and possible.
Oh, don't worry, you can eat my sandwiches. That's really awkward.
Good. Well, I will. I'll be right over then. um,
Oh,
yeah, but that's our DLC plan, which is to say, yeah, yeah, I
right.
think so. Yeah.
As most developers do. And so in terms of just platforms it's going to be released on, Dragon Fantasy Book 1 came to the PC,
Hmm.
Mac, Android, and iOS, and then it came over to PSN platforms.
Hmm.
Is Dragon Fantasy Book 2 just going to be a PSN exclusive, or can we expect it on more platforms like console, mobile, and even PC and Mac?
Well, let me put it this way. Yes, it's a PlayStation exclusive, but exclusivities don't last forever anymore. So at some point, you may see it on other platforms. But for now, we're focused entirely on Sony. I'm a absolute huge fan of what they've been doing, over the last couple of years with indies and with PlayStation 4 looking really awesome. And we're going to be very, very focused on Sony basically forever at this point. Like unless they suddenly say, oh, you know what, we hate indies now. Unless that happens, they are a magnificent place for us to work, to target all of our software for. And so, yeah, we're a PlayStation first, everything else second developer these days.
All right. And speaking of PlayStation 4 and indies,
Mm-hmm.
at Sony's conference, they actually showed the 9 indie developers with Octodad
Mm-hmm.
and Transistor being some of the few on there. How did you guys feel about that and the whole
Oh, I
their presence?
loved it. I loved it. You know, I wish I wish we could have been there. We'd been offered. I mean, we're registered PlayStation 4 developers. It's just Book 2 is really not a PlayStation 4 kind of game. Book 3, though, that will likely be a PlayStation 4 game. Of course, by the time Book 3 comes out, PlayStation 4 will, excuse me, PlayStation 4 will have been out for quite a while, I think, and it'll be kind of more mainstream than like cutting edge.
Okay.
But we're really looking forward to starting working on Book 3 as a PlayStation 4 and Vita probably game. I mean, I don't know the details behind it, but my vision for it is it's a PlayStation 4 and Vita game, and heck, maybe a PlayStation 3, port that isn't as yeah. Basically, the PlayStation 3 version would be the same as the Vita version, probably, and then the PlayStation 4 version would be just gorgeous.
Yeah, that'd be a nice treat for PS4 guys.
Hmm. And just that system is so deliciously powerful. I just look at it and I'm like, oh, I want to program on that. Yes. So, I'm looking forward to that.
Okay. Yeah,
Maybe we'll be on stage next year.
hey, maybe. All right, and the final thing that I guess everyone would want to know is when can we expect Dragon Fantasy Book 2?
We are shooting for the end of summer. The sort of Augusty, Septembery kind of area. Basically, I want the game to be out before PAX Prime so bad. And if it's not, I will be crying at PAX Prime. You'll see me. There'll be tears everywhere. It'll be awful. I want this done, and I want to take a vacation. It's been a very long time since I've done anything other than program. So, yes, we're hoping to be done by the end of summer.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Adam, and it's been a pleasure interviewing you.
Not a problem. Thank you. I've enjoyed this, and let's do it again sometime.
All right, definitely. Have a
Cool.
nice day.
You too. Talk to you later.
All right, thank you. Bye.